Hi, my name is Jenna Medke, and I'm going to give my presentation on third parties. What are third party interventions? Third party interventions is an involvement of a person or team into an ongoing conflict of two or more people that manage the union to solve the conflict. So ultimately, what that means is a third party is someone who's not necessarily involved in the situation, but they are going to try to help to get to the bottom of that conflict and that resolution. This party helps to analyze the consequences that are happening and manage how those conflicts are going to be resolved, which is something that we see every day as future administrators and right now as staff members. There are so many advantages of using third party intervention, not only in schools and in education, but all over in every job. So, one way that an advantage is for using third parties is it's a change in style. It's a different viewpoint. It's a change in perspective in the way that people are thinking of about a situation when they're removed from that initial conflict that happened. Also, when using a third party, there is a balance of power. That third party should be someone who is balancing that scale here, not tilting it one way or tilting it the other way based on their feelings. Also, with that, they are able to arrive at solutions that it might be hard for others to see and arrive at when they are in the moment of that conflict. There are a few different third parties that I'm going to be talking about today. The third party resolution options that I think are most relevant within a school and as a future administrator are coaches, counselors, and mediation or mediators. The first that I'm going to talk about is coaching. So, according to Wilmot, the definition of coaching is a process in which a coach or client communicates one on one for the purpose of developing a client's conflict related understanding, interaction strategies, and interaction skills. So, ultimately, what that means is that coach has that flexibility in that individual conflict or event to talk about how they are thinking. Also, along with that, they are learning the skills to be successful with that person right alongside of them. Um, this can happen when the people or parties that are involved don't want to necessarily go to mediation. They might start with coaching to understand that. So there's a few different models. The relational coaching model helps to identify emotions, identity, and power. The synergy model is part of the International Coaching Association, but it sets the standards for those coaches and the things that they are learning and taking part in to make mediation of these conflicts in that way successful. They might be working one on one or they might be working with a team, but this organization consults to help that training. It really brings that preparation and facilitation into that informal or formal meeting that is happening. Ultimately, the next part is coaches help with emotions. Okay. The comprehensive coaching model really breaks that down. They look at emotional intelligence of those people that are there. Um, a coach really has to be that person who listens openly and refrains from putting their own opinions necessarily in there, but really listening to both of those sides and ultimately supporting what those choices are those people are talking about, whether they are positive or negative, being able to try to reinforce those parties together. Counseling is the next type that I'm going to talk about, and this is the one I think that we think about most when we're in this school. So, counselors can include people who are therapists, maybe that is outside of the school day, or they're professional counselors, or there are school counselors that are there for our kids every day. Counseling needs can include that one-on-one needs. It could be two parties, or it could be an involvement of a whole group or an entire family. Um, these people seek out these services when counseling. It's not necessarily put on them that they have to go to this, but our job as a counselor is to listen and try to bring that stress and personal issues into perspective with both parties or whatever party you are working at. Ultimately, with conflict and counseling, their goal is to prevent future conflicts from happening and being able to have that conversation. Some similarities between coaching and conflict is everyone is trying to understand the situation. So both parties, both counseling and coaching, are trying to understand the conflict without having harsh startups or defensiveness or blaming or criticism that is happening. Ultimately, they want the best outcome for the parties that are involved. Mediation is the third one that I'm going to talk about. And in Wilmot, mediation was defined as a process in which disputants attempt to resolve their differences with assistance of a third party who find acceptable. So ultimately, in mediation, this is a moderate level rather than an extreme level of conflict that we're dealing with. The parties that are in mediation want their situation or solution to happen. They are willing to work together and come up with ideas. They just need someone else there to point them in that right direction that is happening. So ultimately, there's no one party that has more or less power, but those conflicts of trying to figure it out haven't worked by going just one-on-one. They need someone else to help them brainstorm and bring that level of mediation to what they need. The next thing I'm going to talk about is arbitration versus adjudication. So in arbitration, we're talking they are entering voluntarily. They are keeping one party from being that passive aggressive or getting those tactics at each other. This person who has that is specially trained to help that area of discussion or content area that they are talking about. And if that dispute can't be resolved, then it's going to the next step and we're going to a judge or jury. So adjudication is when a jury or a judge is directly involved in that decision making, making sure that power balancing mechanism is happening for those two parties and a rational decision can be figured out with the information that is given to a juror. The next thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about the importance of third party intervention and the importance of a parent and the importance of a staff member. So the importance in a parent is saying it's giving your students options and how they're feeling in situations, allowing for choice and multiple viewpoints. Tough situations can arise outside of school. We're very aware of that, but having someone that they can communicate with in school if they feel needed. Excuse me. The next one is the importance of this from a staff member. It also gives, it's same thing, it gives those students, but knowing that the staff members are not alone. It is an open line of communication that if you are struggling and if you are trying to make things work, staff members always have someone to turn to and learn to. There's always that next person that is there in their lives. Lastly, the last thing I want to talk about is the importance of third parties from an administrator. So going for administration, things that I'm thinking about right now is having a third party gives us options. It gives us viewpoints that we might not think of because of the either interaction that we've had already with that staff, student, family, or knowing that someone else might have a better idea. So ultimately, we want to have that support for everyone in our community, as well as our students that are coming through that door and our staff who are coming through that door. Maximum levels of communication are humongous. Kids need to feel that they are protected. And ultimately, that last line there, knowing you are not alone, knowing that student or that staff member is not alone makes for successful intervention and conflict resolution. Thank you. Here are my references.